Well, hello. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes with me. I'm going to continue on the subject matter of focusing on Him. What a great subject matter this is, and there's just so many examples in Scripture. I'm going to draw upon the example from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 14 today, and let me set this up. Jesus and His disciples had just had a full day of ministering to people. They had fed 5,000. It was just, everyone was just overwhelmed at this miracle that took place. And so Jesus commanded His disciples to get into the boat and go ahead of Him into the other side of the sea. And Jesus spent some time with the multitudes, then He released them. Then He went to the mountain and He prayed all evening. Between 3 and 6 in the morning, He started making His journey out to where the disciples were. Well, they had made it halfway across the sea and they had encountered a storm. And now here comes Jesus walking on the water, and the disciples in the midst of this storm look over and they see someone, but they're not quite sure who it is. So they're fearful, they're apprehensive, they're concerned. What in the world is going on? And as they began to cry out, Jesus identifies Himself. And this is where we're going to pick up the account in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 14. And Jesus said, "It is I, be not afraid." And Peter answered and said unto Him, "Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water." And amazing, isn't it? And He said, "Come." And when Peter had come out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out His hand and caught him, and He said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those who were in the boat came and worshiped Him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." I want to give you some things to consider that are positive when we keep our focus on Him. Obviously, in the midst of life, we can be in the middle of the storm. And what we see all around us is just trouble, and there's no way out, and we're concerned. And we're wondering, where in the world is the Lord? And we may even have a permitted fear to come in and determine and to forecast our future. Well, in that moment, Jesus does something amazing. He knows that we need Him. And so He identifies Himself. "It is I." And when He says, "It is I," our focus goes on Him. In other words, the first thing that happens when we focus on Him is He addresses our fears. He brings a message of courage, of faith, of comfort to us. And then secondly, we hear His commands. We've had a lot of storms in the area recently. We even had one last night that just blew through here in our local community. And it's noisy. And when things are noisy and you're in the midst of a storm and your mind is racing, sometimes it's hard to hear from the Lord. But as we focus on Him, we hear His commands. And what was the command to Peter? Come. In other words, God gives us something that we need to do with Him, not apart from Him. And then the next thing happens. Our faith increases. We begin to experience things that we never would apart from God. So as we look upon Him, our fears dissipate. All of a sudden we hear things that help us to go forward. We do things we couldn't do apart from Him. We experience things we would never experience without Him. And then He does something wonderful. In a moment where maybe we are diverted and take our eyes off of Him, when we are focusing on Him, He's close enough to help us in those moments with our fears and with our doubts. And then He gets us back into a safe place, and all is well, and peace comes. I think this is the most important thing, though. And sometimes a part of the story that we leave out. And that is, when all is said and done, we have this revelation and this understanding that Jesus is the Son of God. When you look at Jesus in the midst of a storm or in the midst of a season where you're celebrating, you just can't help but come to the conclusion, I got through everything I got through because of Jesus. And I'm experiencing everything good in my life because of Jesus. And it causes us to worship Him. Wow, that's what we were created for, to worship God. So let's keep our focus on Jesus. Thanks always for spending a few minutes with me. If you like this, let us know, share it, leave a comment. God bless you.